Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are around the world, and welcome to another Office Hours here on Hosting.com's Agency Success. My name is Nathan Ingram. I am the agency trainer here at Hosting.com, and so glad that you are here. We have a lot to talk about, a bunch of questions already in the queue. And if you're watching this on replay and you can't ever make the live broadcast of Office Hours, you can always go to WPNathan.com, click the Ask a Question button up there in the header, and you can get your question in the queue and we'll address it. We take these in the order, usually in the order in which they are received. So, yeah. Would love to have more questions from folks that are catching this on the replay, as I know many of you are. So we have a number of things to talk about today, a few bits of WordPress news. Looks like at this moment, there are 8 questions in the list. I'm going to drop in the link to ask questions there in the chat for all of you who are live right now. And if you have a question to ask, go ahead and get that in the queue. Well, let's start off with probably what filled your inboxes on Tuesday, and that was the long-awaited release of WordPress 6.9.1. Took a couple of months after the initial release to get this first .1 maintenance release out. So what that tells you is the 6.9 release was pretty solid out of the gate. So that's a good thing. 49 bug fixes, which is honestly, it's comparatively low for a .1 or really any minor release. So we've updated, no issues. And just as a best practice, it is the default behavior of WordPress to automatically update your WordPress install to these minor releases. A minor release is this, if it's a 3-digit or a 3.3-digit, 2 dots, 3 digits. Anyway, the .1 is a minor release. 6.9 was a major release. So the major releases, generally, you have to manually update. The minor releases, the default behavior of WordPress is that it will update them automatically, and I recommend that you use that default behavior. We like to wait on major releases just in our agency as a best practice, just to make sure there aren't any issues, because sometimes there are. 6.9, though, didn't really have any. I'm grateful for that. So really no news there other than it's out, and hopefully you are updated and all of your WordPresses are happily running WordPress 6.9.1. Next thing I want to share with you, this is a really good article. It is from OmniSend, which is a relatively new service in the WordPress space that helps with email delivery, email marketing, and so forth. And there's some interesting facts here as they looked at 26.7 billion with a B emails that were sent through their system last year, just to get some basic trends. So if you do email marketing, this is definitely an article you want to take a look at. And some of the things here are helpful, and some of them are just gee whiz trivia type things. Like, for example, I don't know how my world would be complete without knowing that the sparkle emoji was the highest used emoji of 2025, followed not so closely by fire and the celebrate emoji. Anyway, Drake, for whatever reason, was the biggest celebrity name drop. Batman was the #1 celebrity, or what am I looking for? TV show and movie mention in emails. Whatever. There are some interesting things here, though. Animals, great. The topics, email campaigns using this keyword, protein. So apparently a lot of nutritional email marketing went out last year. That's kind of interesting. I did see Bluey, Doris. I agree. The adult members of my family love Bluey, the cartoon. Politics and trade, tariffs, of course, #1 in that. Halloween. Isn't this interesting? You would not think this was the case, but Halloween, #3 behind Christmas and Valentine's Day as email promotions. Pretty interesting. And let's see, Last Chance and Lucky You were the top, actually by far, the top grabbing phrases. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here because there is another report here that I even want to mention beyond this one. And it is their e-commerce marketing report. Let me just click on this one and I'll share this link in the chat as well. This one also really helpful with statistics. Now, the great thing about these articles that have these statistics is they are great fodder for client communication and blog posts for your own agency. This one, if you deal with e-commerce clients, I think you'll find that this has some interesting information. So e-commerce order volume grew 98% year over year, which is interesting. E-commerce is only growing. This is a really handy graph because it allows you to switch from global to various countries around the world. So here in the US, slightly different, a higher peak in quarter 3. If you're in the UK, it's interesting. Look at the difference there in e-commerce in the UK. If you're in Canada, also a little flatter than global or the US. So a lot of interesting information here. And again, if you're looking for blog post material, this could really be helpful. Scrolling on down the list here to the next bit, I'm going to skip this part and get to the next one. Right here, I found this to be the most interesting piece of this article, and it's talking about automated emails. That's really OmniSend's bread and butter. So, they have a lot of data here, but look at some of the takeaways here. Although automated emails such as abandoned cart emails, welcome emails, product abandonment, lapsed purchase, etc., these things are sent automatically to a customer based on some event. They're just 2% of all the emails that OmniSend sent, yet they generated 30% of revenue. That is a huge takeaway. Automated emails work. Yeah. Nearly 1 in 3 clicks on an automated email resulted in a purchase. So if you're in the e-commerce world, if you're not doing it already, a great service for you to add for your customers could be getting smart on email automation, setting up some cart abandonment and other processes to start to recover revenue that your clients may not realize that they're losing. This is pretty amazing. 1 in 3 clicks resulted in a purchase. So a lot of other interesting statistics under that. I would invite you, if you do e-commerce, to really dig into this because it is potentially a great revenue source for you in 2026. There's a lot of other stuff here that I'll let you take a look at. But again, that report, the link is in the chat. OmniSend Resources Reports and the 2026 E-commerce Marketing Report. All right. Some news has also come out from FAIR. This is the initiative in the WordPress community to create an alternative to the WordPress.org theme and plugin directory, and instead use FAIR and independent repositories. So FAIR has a blog post. I'm going to drop the link there in the chat. Their website is fair.pm. FAIR is working on a new way to distribute WordPress plugins. We've known about that. We've been talking about it for over a year now. Their newest version of the plugin and their plan allows, they're working toward allowing commercial paid plugins to be distributed through this same ecosystem. So imagine that you could do a search right there in WordPress and download Gravity Forms or, your page builder of choice. Now, you'd obviously still have to license it, but they could be available through the same mechanism because rather than being attached to WordPress.org, the FAIR plugin attaches it to the FAIR and Independent Repository group of download nodes. So pretty interesting. They're going to be working this year to bundle and redistribute the top 10,000 plugins in WordPress under the FAIR system. So pretty cool. Could really change how people discover plugins and make our life a little easier even by selecting certain repositories for our client plugins. Still a little too early to make any recommendations at this point, other than really watch what FAIR is doing. If you want a story that really digs into some more of the details, the repository, as usual, has excellent coverage of all things WordPress, and in particular, the latest updates from FAIR. So I'd recommend that you take a look at that. Just spend a couple of minutes and just stay top of, let FAIR be something that you're aware of, because 2026 really could be the year where FAIR starts getting traction inside the WordPress community. All right, another repository article. We haven't talked about this in a while, and that is the ongoing lawsuit with WordPress and Matt Mullenweg versus WP Engine. WooCommerce has been added as a defendant to the lawsuit. That was expected because WooCommerce made some claims against WP Engine last year, and so they've officially been added to the lawsuit as well. But the takeaway here from this article, and let me drop this link in the chat as well if you want to follow this. The judge is getting annoyed at the very lengthy briefings that attorneys for both sides are presenting and is ready to get on with it. So jury trial still isn't, it's set and it's still in place for June 2027. So we're still a long way away for this. And there's really no new big news in the WP Engine versus Matt Mullenweg and WordPress lawsuit. I found this article to be very, very interesting, and I'd recommend a read. It's pretty short. It'll take you maybe 5-10 minutes to read. This is from Jean Galea. He is the founder of WP Mayor and the the Mastermind.fm podcast. Very plugged in, very smart individual. And he basically said, is there really a WordPress replacement in 2026? And he covers all of the latest things. Like we talked a couple weeks ago about Astro, which is a very developer-oriented website building platform that was just acquired by Cloudflare. It publishes in straight flat files. So it's really not client-friendly. You have to have developer tools to edit the literal code on the page. There's not a CMS behind it, but it's a really cool platform. And so he looks at a lot of those things and modern PHP CMSs like Statamic and Craft. It's a good overview. And basically the takeaway from all of this is WordPress is still very relevant in 2026, especially if you're dealing with a website that a regular person needs to edit and add content to. There's really not a replacement for WordPress. So take a look at that, unless, again, there's a lot of caveats, and he talks about Squarespace in the place of the simple site builders out there. Still a place for those, but for a complicated, we'll say, website that a client still needs to be able to edit, WordPress is still the king of the hill. This is a good article, and I'd recommend that you read it. All right. One more thing before we dive into questions, and that is our link bundle. I'm going to drop it in the chat. The first link in the link bundle takes you to this page on which we give you the links to register for all of our upcoming live streams. Of course, office hours every Thursday. On Tuesday, I'll be talking about imposter syndrome and surviving a crisis of confidence. On February the 24th, I'll be talking to you about talking to clients about website security and just how do I have those discussions with my clients. I'm going to really unpack that for you and give you some phrases you can use and ways to talk about security that in the end will hopefully help you build your recurring revenue and strengthen your credibility with your clients. And then finally, on March the 10th, that's also a Tuesday, we'll be talking about dialing in your pricing, and I'll give you some perspective on, how do you price your work? How do you price your services, projects, recurring maintenance, and other types of services? So we'll be talking about that in detail on March the 10th. All that coming up as part of Hosting.com's Agency Success live streams. All righty, let's get to your questions. It looks like we currently have 9 questions in the list. Once more, I'm going to drop the link to ask questions in the chat. If you have a question to ask and you're not in the list yet, I would strongly advise you to get that in the list so we can have time to cover it today. All right, first question is from Awesome Paul. Hey, Paul. Paul says, looking over an inherited site that we were working on, and I see an old file in the root directory of WordPress. wp-pass.php. It was removed in WordPress 3.4. I was about to say, I haven't recalled seeing that file maybe ever. Although I was working with WordPress at 3.4. Interesting. For sites that have been around for a long time, do you ever go in and do a refresh of WordPress to clean out old files like this? Do recent versions of WordPress remove old files? I guess not. That is correct. Or since this is such an old file, recent versions are not looking for such an old file. Yeah. So WordPress doesn't clean up after itself for lots of different reasons. And so you would be safe, for example, you'd be very, very careful about this, of course, but you could go in and delete core files out of the root directory if you wanted to. Make sure you leave your WP config and your htaccess and things like that. But when you reinstall core WordPress, it's going to just put those, it'll overwrite files that are there. And if you delete the old ones, it's fine. It's probably not going to cause a problem if it's there as well. This is, of all of the security issues I would be concerned with regarding WordPress, this old file is not one of them. Oh, and here, so a lot of ways you can tell how old the site is. How many of you can log into a WordPress install today and still see a links menu item in the sidebar in the admin? That'll tell you this site goes back a long way. Yeah. So Paul, I think you're safe to leave it. If you want to delete it, I mean, you obviously can, but yeah, good catch. It's been a long time since I've seen that file. If you have other thoughts for Paul, drop those there in the chat. It's a fun way to start things off. All right, next up in the list is Melanie. Hey, Melanie. Melanie says, I have a large client who wants to build out their employee section and have it protected with SSO. Oh, dear. Have you ever done this, and what are the gotchas involved? Okay. Yes. So we have never done this as an agency, but there are multiple plugins for WordPress that enable SSO. Mini Orange is one that comes to mind. It's been around a long time. And you can set that up and connect it. It's a real pain. But once you get it set up, it should be fine. Now, what this will do is it won't, so it allows login to WordPress via SSO. And if you're not familiar with what SSO is, it's single sign-on, meaning just like, for example, you go to some sites and you can sign in with Google or sign in with Facebook. That's SSO, a single sign-on that gives you access to multiple things. And so WordPress does allow this. There are plugins that will allow SSO inside of WordPress, but it's not just, of course, Melanie, for that one particular employee section. You would need to have a WordPress user for all those that would log in or create an account, and that would have a role that would give them access to this particular area. So you're still going to need to deal with probably role-based permissions. And if their employees are the only ones that are going to be signing in, then, the subscriber role is fine. You just you'll have to set up the pages that are internally accessed to only be viewable if they're logged in. You don't want to do that. No user accounts. So SSO, you are signing into WordPress. And so there does have to be a corresponding WordPress account. One of the things I need to add is employees don't have WordPress user accounts. This is only to view employee benefits pages. Okay. This is starting then to become, Melanie, something I wouldn't want to do in WordPress, because you have to have a WordPress account. That's how SSO works. SSO, it's just using that external system to authenticate inside of a WordPress user account. There's a way to do it. Yeah, so so you might be able to do it through Cloudflare. That's not something I've ever explored, Melanie, but you could, with a series of rules, allow Cloudflare to authenticate and then show a page. But again, this is something where we're getting to that spot where WordPress might not be the best solution. And so some of this could be, how much does the client need to edit? Are they going to need to edit this page frequently? Because it could be something that lives on Cloudflare, or it could be a subdomain, for example, that lives in Cloudflare as Cloudflare pages, but you would have to do the updates. This is really complicated, and it's going to be, we're at that point where it might not be the best place to do it inside of WordPress. Yeah. And Paul has a great point there in the chat. If they are wed to Microsoft, then a SharePoint might be the way to go, because they're already going to be authenticated as users there. And when you say we don't want WordPress users, is there a reason for that? I mean, it's really Once you set up SSO, it's pretty simple. They'll need to create the user account in the WordPress install. Thousands of users. I mean, WordPress can handle thousands of users, no problem. But this is definitely something like if you're going to do it in WordPress, it's definitely something I would want in its own, not on the main marketing site for the company, but in a subdomain, separated off. So if you need to, like what you don't want to do is 2 years from now, you're trying to rebuild the marketing site. And in the middle of all that, you got to figure out all these SSO and access and all of that. This needs to be, it's like, don't put, if you can avoid it, in many cases, don't put your membership site on the marketing domain, right? Kind of separate those. Yeah. So WordPress can have thousands of users without any issue. It's made for that. As long as your hosting is good. All right. So does that help, Melanie, at all? I would really explore with them. I think Paul's suggestion is very good. Explore with them using SharePoint internally to create this subdomain and just point the DNS there because their authentication is going to be handled already. All right. Well, Melanie, let us know where that lands. That's a fun project for sure. It's a fun project that could become a fun project, right? The project that you wish had never happened. Okay. Next up in the list is Ben. Hey, Ben. Okay. Ben Bradley, we are talking about blog post images into media library. So after several years, one of my clients has finally published their first blog post. That's a landmark. You should send them a coffee cup or something. They've even added an image into the post, which looks great. However, they missed the featured image. Yeah. I've gone to do a quick video on how to add the featured image from the media library. And of course, the image in the blog post is not in the media library, but in the uploads folder. How did they get it there? That's the question. How did they get it there? Is there a way to force any images copy paste into a post to be added into the media library? All right, so they just pasted in the image. WordPress doesn't put something in the media library, or pardon me, WordPress doesn't put something in the uploads folder without putting it in the media library. Like that's the way it's not, if they paste an image in, it's probably an external image. Are you sure it's loading from that website's media library? You're saying the URL is in the uploads folder and it is their site's uploads folder. I don't know how that would happen. Okay, so far Ben gets the award for the weird thing of the week. I don't know how that would happen, Ben. Interesting. It should put it. Are you sure it's not in the media library? Are you really sure? That is so weird. I mean, yes, you can paste an image, but that should put it in the media library as it uploads it to uploads. Like that's just part of the WordPress file upload system. I mean, David is saying they could have uploaded it, but they'd have to have FTP access. And I'm guessing since this is the client's first blog post, they also don't know how to use FTP. Oh, you had to manually upload the image yourself to add it to the featured image for the client? Okay. Anyway, that's weird. The question is, how do you deal with this in the future, right? Okay. Okay, Ben, that's what I thought. So what has happened is it's coming in. It's an external image from somebody else's media library. That's what I thought it was probably happening at the beginning. No worries. That's what I thought was actually happening. So the client needs to understand how to do this. So congratulations for adding a blog post. That's fantastic. Now, let me show you a process for how to do this. What you can do there, and there was an old plugin. It's been around forever that was posted earlier called, how about I get it over here? Auto post a featured image. This has been around forever. Actually, this isn't even the one I was thinking of. There's another one that's even different than this. And this one looks like it's been around a while. Got a lot of users. Anyway, this is just a snippet. And Ben, you can actually, with your favorite AI tool, write just a short snippet that on publish, it will take the first, like if a featured image isn't set, it will take the first image the client added in the post and make that the feature image on publish. So it's a very simple piece of code. It wouldn't be very long. And your favorite AI tool, Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, you can do that. Like it'll just generate that for you. So use this plugin that's on the screen or write your own little snippet, whatever you want to do. This is a training issue. And just teach the client how to upload images. And that's your best probably solution to the issue. Yes, and just train the client. Stacy's made a great point there. This is, first of all, it should be in your contract that if you upload an image, you need to know the provenance of that image and if you have the rights to use it. But this is also part of that training where you just let the client know you can't just put any image on your website. That image is subject to copyright. And if you're hot linking from somebody else's site, you're actually using their bandwidth when your page loads. And the client probably doesn't have any idea of this and so forth. It's probably also possible, I haven't done this before, but my guess is that your favorite AI tool could generate a snippet that would not allow the embedding of external images or external URLs of any kind in a post. That's probably a very short little snippet as well. So investigate that. And have a little, you can even have the plugin or snippet pop up a little window that says this is an external image, you need to upload it through the media library. But ultimately this all comes back to training and what will probably be a short conversation with the client. Yeah. And this is what we're here for. Like this is the very root level of what we as web agencies offer to clients whose sites that we manage. We're here to help them with this sort of thing. And so it's a great opportunity, Ben, for you to reinforce your value to this client. All right, Ben says, I've had the PPC marketing company email me and ask me if I have a backup of the client's old website that was run by a previous developer to split test the conversion rate of the old website compared to the new one. Interesting. The fact is, we built the new site and then we switched the DNS over, so there was no need to back up the old website. Yeah. The new website's been live for over 2 years now. This is the same marketing company that took the PPC business away from my business last year. Okay. This was despite being clear with the client that we fulfilled their brief and so forth. Yeah. Our position was that Google Ads was not as effective for cold leads that were hitting the site with crystal clear info for a high ticket service in private healthcare. So less leads were coming through. So as the PPC company wants to split test the conversion rate of the old website, does that suggest to you that they are looking to use the existing site as a scapegoat for a potential client in their Google Ads conversions? Wow. Okay. That's a mouthful. Does it look like they want to do that? I would want why. Okay, first of all, no, we don't have a 2-year-old backup of some old website that we replaced. Or do you? Do you actually have that backup still, Ben? We probably wouldn't have that backup anymore after 2 years. And you like restoring that site, you're going to have to update a bunch of things and whatever. That's crazy. Like restoring a 2-year-old backup, like 8 million plugins out of date. That just seems, anyway, really complicated. So does it suggest to me that they are looking to use the existing site as a scapegoat? It could, I I would submit as a proverb that one can never underestimate the motives of a PPC company. And I'll stop talking. I don't know why they would want to split test the conversion rate of the old website. And honestly, does the client really want that 2-year-old website out there? Like if they're going to split test it, we're saying that they're going to send half their traffic to some old outdated website? That sounds like a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. Yeah, why would you even do that? That's really weird. But once again, I never underestimate the things that a PPC company is going to ask or to do, and never underestimate the basic ignorance of a typical digital marketing company about anything on the web. Like it's just the questions that we get asked sometimes are um yeah are just bizarre from people you do the internet for a living, right? Anyway, Shifty. We'll go. Yeah, Paul, we'll go with Shifty. Thank you for that. Interesting, Melanie. I'm sure we'll get to this topic later on in a question, but is there a cookie consent solution that might be dropping the tracking of conversions, Ben? Ah, there you go. That's just unfortunately the nature of the beast right now. And yes, everybody is seeing a drop in conversions because of AI overviews. Thank you for mentioning that as well, Sherry. Yeah, but Melanie, like Ben being in the UK, if it's UK traffic, you're always going to have to show a cookie banner, right, Ben? So, roughly, as a rule of thumb, what I've seen is about 1 in 3 people um, don't accept the cookie banner. That's the statistic. Those are the numbers I've seen floating around. For me, it's just like whichever button is closer to my mouse when the thing pops up is what I click. I don't care. Google knows everything about me anyway. Okay, interesting, Ben. Let us know if you get a follow up on that because that is certainly a strange request. Okie dokie. Next up is Awesome Paul. Hey, Paul, again. Do I need more coffee? Well, the answer to that question is always yes. Like that's anyway, using Cadence and building a landing page just for lead generation. You always need more good coffee, though. Let's be clear. Good coffee. Okay, Cadence and a landing page just for lead generation. I can go and disable header to remove the menu. Yes, or the header. Is there a way to put something else in that menu spot? Maybe I should ask, can I have a different header on one page or another? Can it be dynamic? Well, in fact, you can, Paul. It's called dynamic headers in Cadence. So, or conditional header. Yes. So, what you'll do, Paul, is you'll go into Appearance in Cadence and you will toggle on conditional headers. Boom. And this will allow you via the customizer here to define your extra headers. And yes, you can have extra headers as a result. Now, what you may want to decide is it worth setting up a conditional header for this one landing page? Or is it easier just to turn off the header and just add a block up there that's kind of navish to get you what you need? You'd have to make that decision. But yes, you can do conditional headers in Cadence. Yes, as you say in the chat, the answer to this question is yes, you needed more coffee. You just got to make a little toggle, and the toggle hides if you don't have sufficient caffeine. Melanie, that's a good point. Accessibility would like it to be a header tag. Yeah. Okay. So yes, you can do that, Paul. All righty. Next up is Doug. Okay. Hey, Doug. Doug says, I'm expanding my service offering in my agency to include SEO as a billable monthly service. The clients I have onboarded in the last couple of years all have a newer MSA or Master Services Agreement or contract with me. So when they agreed to the SEO proposal, it was just acceptance via email. Okay. That seems to be good enough for both of us. Yeah. Yes. As long as in your proposal, you are offering a scope of work and there aren't any additional things that they need to agree to, that aren't in that proposal. Like, for example, we don't guarantee traffic and things like that. Now, a client of over 15 years has agreed to my SEO services. They like my proposal, The problem is the contract that we have is 10 years old. I used an old template back then before I knew about monster contracts. My plan is to send them a new MSA with the explanation that we need to update for privacy, AI, etc. How do you suggest I provide a contract which they can sign off on the SEO project, or is the SEO proposal, which has prices along with the MSA, which they'll need to sign, good enough? Okay, that's a mouthful. Okay, great question, Doug. And the first, I'm going to answer this big picture that I think applies to everybody, and that is whatever solution you're using for contracts, whether it's my monster contract or something else, it is important to keep a version history so that you know what changed from version to version, just like a plugin, and to keep a listing of your clients and what version they signed. So what we typically do is the next time a client, well, there's two things that spark this process. Number one, the client requests new work that needs a proposal. If they're signing an older version of the master services agreement that has significant changes from what we're using now, we'll have them go ahead and sign a new MSA along with the proposal of services, just to update them. Also, from time to time, and I recommend that you do this, it's part of master contracts, but if you have an MSA from whatever source, it makes sense to have excerpted from that MSA just the part that pertains to managing the website. Because from time to time, a client that's, 5 years ago, you probably have things that you need to, that they need to agree to, because our world is different, right? Today than it was 5 years ago, with AI and privacy and accessibility and a lot of those things that we knew about, but maybe weren't in our contract as specific as they should be. So from time to time, it's good to go through our client list. Those that are older and haven't signed a recent agreement, they probably need to re-up on at least a website management agreement, just to keep them current, with our the current versions and changes in the contract that you're using now. First of all, pausing, does that make sense to everybody? Just make that part of your process. Really, really important, because you don't want, for example, a 10-year-old document that didn't include some key thing that you're using now. You don't want that to come back and bite you because they didn't sign that version. So keep your clients up to date on their agreements. Okay, so is it enough to have them sign the SEO proposal and the MSA? So if there are, so you can do this a couple of ways. The point of a master services agreement is that all of your services have a single document that have all the rules of the road for all of the services that you offer. If you offer to your clients website creation, website management, SEO, then probably all three of those services should be in the master services agreement. As far as there probably ought to be an SEO chunk in your MSA that gives the rules of the road for every SEO project that you have. Just like your current MSA has the rules of the road for website creation. Does that make sense? So if there are terms that every SEO client agrees to, we don't guarantee leads, we don't do, the things that, all of those rules of the road, right? So Doug is saying the SEO proposal has a disclaimer about performance, et cetera. Yes. So, and that's fine. But if you like, for it to be truly an MSA, just drop that into your MSA as well. That way, when a client onboards with you, maybe they don't take your SEO service, but they sign your MSA that includes those rules. That way, if they want to add SEO later, you just give them a proposal for the scope of work and a price. Just like if they wanted to add something to their website, you could give them a proposal with a scope of work and a price, knowing that it falls under the banner of the existing MSA. Does that make sense? I just used a lot of words. So it's fine to do it what you're talking about here. But if I were going, you're asking what would Nathan do? Nathan would put the rules for every SEO project that never change from project to project, put that in the MSA. So Doug is asking in the chat, make sure the MSA makes reference to the SEO proposal. I would say Well, if you're using Monster Contracts, for example, there is a section in there about the proposal of services. And if you call this other document a proposal of services for SEO, or just the scope of work is SEO services, it works without any additional changes, right? Does that make sense? It's just another proposal of services. These services happen to be SEO services rather than website creation. So you're still giving a scope of work and a price that falls under the banner of the MSA. And the wisdom, folks, of using a two document approach like that, like some people will want their proposal and contract to be the same thing. I just find that's not good for two reasons. First, you want your contract to be discrete, its own document, because especially with larger clients, the entity within the company that's going to sign the MSA is probably not the entity that you're doing day-to-day work with, like legal versus marketing teams. So once you get the legal team to approve your MSA, you're good, and you can just do projects with the marketing team. It makes it a lot simpler. For smaller businesses where there's not those layers, it really doesn't matter. But the other thing is we get all of our terms out of the way in this contract, and now we have a very simple proposal that just has a scope of work and a price with no friction to get from here's what we're going to do, here's what it's going to cost, and here's where you sign. I want no friction in that document with lots of legal terms and whatever. I want that as simple as possible. So again, I just said a lot of words. Does that make sense to everybody? Any follow-ups in the chat? First of all, Doug, does that make sense to you? This was your question. Is this what you're looking for? Doug says, I'm going to make sure the SEO proposal is called proposal of services. Yes, exactly. That's what I would do. Paul says, when you submit a new MSA to a client, do they ever ask you to point out the differences from the original or just sign? No, when I send it, if there's a new version, and it'll usually be a new website management agreement, I will basically give them a client-friendly version of the change log, right? That's another value of that change log from version to version. You can just, these are the things that changed between the one you signed and this one. And by the way, you all know this, but I am a website agency owner. I am not a lawyer, and none of that was legal advice. You should have a lawyer. You should talk to them about these things, and you should also try to sell them a website unless they're a jerk. Sherry, do you always do a formal proposal even on small work? Sometimes I just do it in the email. Yeah, it depends. So if it's just a small, like for perfect example, client reached out, they need 2 landing pages added to their website. I just did that by email. You know, they sent us the Word doc for the text. Yeah, we'll do it for this price. Done. Now, if there's any, if it starts to take it up another level where there's multiple things that have to be done, I'll make a proposal for a mini project, and it's just a scope of work and a price. This was a wonderful conversation. And it is so important that we have the legal bits tied up. All right, moving to the next question from Jamie. Hey, Jamie. Jamie says, I have 10 sites on hosting.com managed agency hosting plan. Yay. And this is the managed WordPress hosting by rocket.net that you have, the 10 site. Excellent. I'm using the pro version of Akiba per Mike Demo's recommendation. Pausing for a moment, we are too. Akiba is fabulous. If you've never heard of it before, it is a Joomla original tool written by a developer. It is very developer-y, but it is rock solid. Like, you know, the backup solutions we've used over the years, you know, we'd have one fail every couple of weeks, right? And that was just normal. We have not had a single of all, like 100 sites, not one single backup failure in 4 months. Blew me away. And it's cheap. I just absolutely, anyway. But I don't really love the interface or the knowledge base. Yeah, it's very developer-y, right? I use the word fence when on Cloudways, but Mike said that's overkill. I agree. Any recommendations for a lightweight security plug? Okay, so Akiba is not a security plugin. It is a backup plugin, right? Are we talking about the same thing, Jamie? It is a backup plugin. So for a WordPress security plugin, I still like solid security. Okay, Jamie, I think the wires are crossed here because Akiba is a backup plugin. He may have recommended something else for security. Um, but no, Akiba is backups. Oh, Stacy's. Oh. I'm sorry. You're right. And Jamie, I apologize. They do have a security plugin, and we don't use that. Let's see. I think it's this one. This admin tools, isn't this it? It does some scanning and things, and uh, I don't. Yeah, we opted not to do this, Jamie, because Immunify 365 is running on our virtual dedicated server with hosting.com, as well as it's also running within rocket.net. There is an admin tools for WordPress also right here. Yeah, there's a Joomla version and a WordPress version. So all of that to say, yeah, I looked into this and this was not something we decided to do. Not to say it's a wrong decision, but yeah, the downside of Akiba, it is rock solid. Like I say, no problems, no failures, zero failures in 4 months for any site. It just works. But wow, is the interface like it? You can a developer built that interface, which is, it is what it is. Once you get used to it, it's okay. Billy, we have tried restores and it works great. It's just different than a lot of other plugins. And you have to realize that it does back up in a proprietary format, for example. But it's reliable. So, okay. So Jamie, did we answer your question at all? I'm not using the security part that Akiba provides. And I definitely don't like WordFence just as an overall solution, full stop. It is too heavy for WordPress. It's doing a lot of things in WordPress to be feature bloat. Like it's giving a lot of features that look really great in a list of things on a sales page, but they don't really help your WordPress security. A lot of the things that WordFence does in the name of protecting your site can be easily thwarted by modern malware. Solid Security is about as lightweight of a WordPress security plugin as you'll find. It's really well built. But again, the job of a word, and look, I've said this multiple times, and I think I can't say it enough. That if you do not want a WordPress plugin doing scanning on your website, that's not what you don't want that. That needs to happen at the server level. And if you're running the managed WordPress powered by Rocket.net, Immunify 365 is running scanning all the time. So the scanning part is you're good. A WordPress security plugin needs to look at, am I running any vulnerable themes and plugins, and can I protect user security? So really great two-factor and passcodes and all those things. That's a great place for a WordPress security plugin. All righty. For the sake of time, we're going to keep moving here because I know the next question is going to be important, and that is from Dave. And we're going to talk about CIPA again. Okay. Dave says, about CIPA from last week, any update on your one customer and what your plan is? Any suggestions you can make that we might be able to technically protect against this? I understand it's not all cookies, just tracking cookies, and you showed us how to see the cookies that a website is depositing. Is there any way we can look up to see if those cookies are tracking cookies if we don't recognize them right off the bat? Okie dokie. Man, we really need like a whole hour on this, don't we? So the answer to all these questions is yes. So quick answer. I don't want to give a lot of client information, but they have chosen of their own accord to ignore it. That's all I'll say. What can we do technically to protect against this? Okay. So by the way, if you were not around last week, here is the link to Termageddon. And Katie, absolutely. So Hans Skilrud is the vice president of Termageddon. He is a former agency owner. His wife, Donata, is an attorney. She is the president of the company, and she is the chairperson of the e-privacy committee of the American Bar Association. You don't get any more legitimate than Donata. So they put together this solution. This is the article on CIPA. And the way that I'm not an attorney, this is not legal advice. The way I understand the law is it's this old law from the 1960s that was written about wiretapping, and they've used that to apply to tracking cookies. It's a very clever money grab, essentially, for law firms in in California. Technically legal. It is technically legal under the law in the state of California. And so if any cookies that are tracking cookies that the user does not explicitly agree to receive, that is technically, by the letter of the law, a violation of CIPA with a $5,000 per occurrence penalty written into the law. So the typical tracking cookies you'll find are Google Analytics, Google Ads and AdWords, and Facebook pixels, LinkedIn pixels, Reddit pixels, social media pixels, these things that are tracking user behavior. And if you don't stop those from being added to the user without them affirmatively accepting them, then you're technically in violation of the law. I would love to hear Hans come on and talk about this. So if we can get him, that would be wonderful. Hans is, if you have a problem with anything Termageddon, you just email Hans and it's fixed. He is stellar at customer service for Termageddon customers. So the questions are, what can we do to technically protect against this? You must have some kind of cookie consent solution, something that's going to block those cookies from loading until the user agrees. Now, for many sites, that's just Google Analytics. So if you remove Google Analytics, you're probably not going to have a tracking cookie. Like, for example, if you load up WP Nathan, the only thing you'll see is Google Analytics tracking cookie. So you could unload Google Analytics and use a cookieless analytics solution like Independent Analytics or one of the many others that are out there. And that'll be fine, probably. I'm not a lawyer, but it's not dropping those tracking cookies. For this, it probably be fine for this issue. However, who knows what the next issue is up the line, which is why I've been recommending to my clients, you just need the full solution from Termageddon. That's going to give you all the legal policies. That's going to give you the cookie consent solution and the whole deal. And yeah, like Melanie's saying, if you're using PPC, you've got to make sure that your scripts are configured. And there's some steps involved here. Like you got to go into the script for Google Analytics and add a little bit to the script code, and AdWords are the same way. It's easy to do once you see what you have to do, but you have to configure it correctly and test it to make sure that the scripts are blocked. That was a lot of words again. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question, Dave? Karen is saying, so right now the issue is Google Analytics and stat tracking. That means we can't use Google Analytics. You can't use Google Analytics without a cookie consent solution. Yeah. And again, when it is, let me start from this direction. When you hear these things as an agency owner, it's like, you got to be kidding me. Like we're already carrying 50,000 pounds of weight with all the other technical stuff we have to deal with, right? And some lawyers from California just threw on another rock. And I get that. I totally get that. It is easy to get overwhelmed with all the things we have to learn. So it's not up to us to find the solution. Let me restate that. It's not up to us to have to figure out what to do for all of our clients. Our role as an agency owner is to make sure our clients are informed about the risk, right? It's up to the client to decide what they want to do about it. And if that requires our activity, such as configuring Termageddon, setting up a cookie banner, they need to pay for that. So, Termageddon recommends a $200 setup fee, and that's what we've put out there to our clients. And it does take some time. So although this has been a lot of work, we've also made some money this last several weeks doing this. So it's a pain, but I don't mind it. It's become a revenue stream as well. So our role, our position in all of this is it's not up to you to just bear the cost and fix it. This is something that's happened. Your clients own the website. Our role here is to inform, educate our clients, and help them to make a decision of what they want to do about their website. So does that help at all? Just to put this into perspective. The good news is it can really be a revenue stream. Oh yes, the overwhelm is real. Now, so there's a couple of emails that we put together for our smaller, we serve a fair percentage of smaller nonprofit clients. And our advice to them is, you're probably not looking at Google Analytics anyway. Let's just pull it off and put a cookieless analytics on there. We'll be done with this. These are small nonprofits. I don't want to charge them for these things, right? I mean, I will, but I don't want to charge them a lot of money for this. It just doesn't make sense. Like they're not even really using their Google Analytics. And Google Analytics, for some of us, this may be news. It is not required to have Google Analytics on every website, right? So a website will do just fine if it doesn't have Google Analytics. Kristen, reCAPTCHA also drops a cookie. Yeah. reCAPTCHA, HCAPTCHA, a lot of those, they're going to drop a cookie. And the thing is, you just have to disclose that in a cookie policy. But if it's a security related cookie, that's not technically a tracking cookie. It's a security cookie. And that's where Termageddon just makes all that work. And that's why I recommend that solution. Anything Google drops a cookie, Facebook embeds, with like a follow button and all that's going to be a cookie. All that stuff's a cookie. Okay. It is the top of the hour, and I can take one more question, but I really have a hard stop right now, but we'll go one more. And let's do this with Shanta. Shanta is the final question. Oh my, the final question, and it's a long one. Okie dokie. I'm sure this is an easy answer. Famous last words. Okay, I'm sure this is an easy answer, she says. Recently, we've noticed that some emails are being put into spam with the subject line, mail delivery failed, returning message to sender. When I dig into it, it isn't spam. They're returned emails containing receipts from sales being made to our Woo site. Hence, our clients that make a purchase on the website aren't getting their receipts. Interesting. My question, is this a DKIM problem or a WP mail delivery problem or something else? Just want to get directions. So the message is gobbledygook, many alphabets. Let's see. Mail server blocked because the sender is this is your issue. The sender is unauthenticated. So what you've got is a misalignment of DKIM and SPF or something going on here. So yes, something is, well, it just the next line. I should have kept reading. There's some alignment issue with the SPF or DKIM. So that needs to get fixed. And that will probably fix the problem. And Ben is correct in the chat. Postmark will solve that because it authenticates every message going out. So there you go. Folks, we do have a few other questions remaining in the list, but I am not able to stay on and take those today. I can't go long. But we will we'll deal with those first thing next week. Question from Ben, Paul, and Tanya. Well, thanks for hanging out with me today. Hope it's been fun. We've covered a lot of things. Hopefully you've picked up a few tips at least. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll be back here on Tuesday to talk about imposter syndrome here on hosting.com's Agency Success, where we go further together.